I was recently at Sweetwater's Gear Fest and I got to hang out and jam with some of my friends at the Universal Audio booth. When it comes to trade shows of any type, UA always does it right. They always have a great booth with interactive stuff, and they had these jam stations set up, and they really encouraged anyone to just kind of sit down and play, and that's what we did. So aside from playing with some friends and great musicians, the other takeaway I had was how well these pedals actually married with amp modeler pedals, basically marrying a single pedal idea to an amp modeler pedal of the current era. So it got me to thinking, instead of using those big pedal board modelers with all of the amps, cabinets, and effects, is combining the single pedals with the sort of single amp modeler devices sort of the way to kind of merge both of those worlds, where we can have our pedals and modelers and love them all at the same time. We can reach down and grab knobs and adjust things like we know how to, instead of going through menus and presets and all that sort of thing. So that's what really sort of got me thinking about this video and how we can do that. So UA set me up in a private room where I could hear these pedals, and they used the Dream 65 amp modeler pedal as the amp pretty much for the entire, sort of demonstration. They had a pedal board with the 1176 before the amp pedal. That made sense. And then they put the time-based effects like the delays and reverbs after the Dream. And you're like, okay, well that makes sense too, but there's no effects loop on the Dream 65. So it's not quite like the effects loop experience you'd have in your amp, but it functions in a similar way. I actually have that same pedal chain here now in the studio, and instead of doing like, this is what this pedal does, this is what this pedal does, I'm gonna get some real world tones for you. I'm gonna use the compressor to smack the front of the amplifier pedal. We're gonna dial in some reverbs and delays and talk about, how to get the most out of some of these if you decide to go with a signal chain like this, where you're using an amp pedal and effects before or after. I try to be a little bit different than all of the videos out there, just telling you what the knobs do and the specs and the feature set. We want to do some real world applications here, hopefully get you something practical that you can take with you, just like I do in my guitar lessons. And speaking of guitar lessons, you can click the link below, try hundreds of them on my website free for 14 days. It's called workingclassguitar.com. If you become a VIP after those 14 days, you can join us in our monthly Zoom Q&A hangs as well. It's a private feature for those that sign up for the long haul. We have a lot of fun. Check that out, as well as links for all the pedals below. Those are affiliate links, and if you buy any one of those pedals, the channel gets a little commission and helps us do what we're doing here. Another special shout out to Sweetwater for hosting such a great event, but also sponsoring this video. Right, guys? So I have this pedal board wired up just like they did at Sweetwater, and I'm using the Dream 65 pedal as my amp. That's what I'm considering as the amp. I'll refer to it as that as we go. And I did a deep dive not only on that pedal, but the other amp pedals in their line here on the channel. It's got all the bells and whistles and things we've come to know and love, from Fender Deluxe reverbs from 1965. I got it dialed up kind of like cleanish with some spring reverb, because that's what was in the amp. Some nice spring there. Yeah, pretty good sound right there. Now, let's say I'm playing and I want to hit that amp a little bit harder for a lead boost or some more, overdrive. I can use the 1176 in front of it to do so, and that's what they wanted to show me. Now, this is nothing new. I've done this before, but not with an amp modeler pedal. I didn't know how it would react. And I think you'll be surprised, because just playing around with it, I got some fun sounds. The 1176, like I said, people will do, lots of videos on this, and they have already. Attack and release controls, just like the original unit. Ratio knob, the higher the ratio, the more compression. The higher the input control. On the input control, the more compression you get. And of course, output is your makeup gain, as we we call it a lot of time in the compression business. The way I have it set is that there's not a lot of compression happening at all. It's just hitting the amplifier, you know, the pedal, and making it overdrive. So what's cool about that, more so than a clean boost or an overdrive pedal, is that it's not altering the sound of the amplifier. It's bringing more of it to the table. And that's what a compressor slash preamp like this would do. You could put a tube screamer in front of that. You could put a blues driver, anything you wanted to in front of those pedals. UA said that was their intent. They wanted these pedals to be able to take outside pedals really well. And it does so. But the 1176 kind of hits it in a manner where it just brings more of the pedal out, but compresses it a smidge and distorts it. Listen to those low notes, how they're retained. Now that's at a 4:1 ratio, so that means it's squeezing it a little bit. But one of the things they wanted to do, and they do this on the plug-in, and I think there's some other products out there that have copied the 1176 that might do that also, whereas they take this control and turn it to off. So now you're just getting the flavor of the 1176 circuitry. Now this is a digital pedal. I'm gonna have to kind of reset the knob. But now I can boost without any compression. Touch responsive, sounds really, really good. Like I said, all the bells and whistles normally of a compressor, they do have this toggle in here that allows you to do a couple different modes. The single mode, there is the middle mode here, which is the dual, where you take, you know, two compressors at the same time. You get sort of the Jimmy Page effect where he used two compressors into the console for Black Dog. There's the Lowell George setting where you can kind of get all this extra squash happening to really get those great, beautiful slide sounds. Check out my video on the UA Max pedal where I did some of that. Big time compressor functions all over that pedal. So that's the 1176 into the Dream. So the answer is yes, it can handle a pedal in front of it, compress it, do everything that an amplifier would. Doesn't mean I'm going to start using modelers right away, but I think it sounds pretty darn good, actually. You know, I got all these amps. I'm an amp junkie. But, you know, I'm not longing for anything. Sounds really, really good. I could make a record with that, no problem. Okay, so that's what it sounds like when you put an 1176 style compressor in front of the Dream. We're gonna put some stuff after it, like the delay and the reverbs, see what that gets us. So the Orion is their tape echo, and they pulled that algorithm directly from their Starlight Echo Station pedal. That's a great delay that has a bunch of things on board that are all sort of vintage, sought-after delays in the truest form in the digital realm that they can make them. And I think what's cool is that they're saying, hey, we know people just want the tape echo perhaps, so let's put that into a single pedal. And again, same bells and whistles. This is not a knob twisting demo per se. We're going to talk about how it works with the Dream after the Dream. It's plugged in after. Remember, the 1176 was before it. So from the output of the Dream into the Orion. And I have it dialed up for just one single repeat. Maybe a little longer would be cool. And you can hear it adds just a little something to my tone, and that's what I like in a delay. I don't want it to overwhelm me. Somewhere in the 300 millisecond to 500 millisecond range is something I always go towards. It doesn't have that readout on it, but you can get close by guessing. And a great delay has that warmth, and it just kind of bubbles up underneath you. Now, this pedal does have a lot going for it. For one, I like the fact that it has the coveted EP3 preamp built in on the back. Now all these pedals have a switch where you can do either true bypass or buffered bypass, which is really nice. And they all have something special, like the Orion, for instance, you can turn on that EP3 preamp, and that's what a lot of people like the Echoplex for. Listen to the difference in tone I get once I flip the switch. Brings some lower mids to the party, beefens up the tone. Yeah. Let's leave it on, it sounds good. And you can hear that just that one repeat really fills up the tone, and repeats are done by the feedback control. As I turn it up, you'll hear more repeats. That's something important to know if you're a first-time delay user. The record level is important because for this original unit, you could actually hit the tape recorder, because there was actually a tape recording your sound, and you can hit it hard and overdrive that, and the delays would be darker, or more distorted, I should say. Let's see if we can do that. Yeah, you can hear it start to get a little bit gravelly. Pretty fun that you can do all that. It sounds pretty accurate. I like to keep it somewhere in the middle just for now. And of course, delay is my length of the delay trails, and the mix is how much of that I want with my dry guitar signal. Now I can change the tape quality or age with this switch in the middle. I have it on the new or the mint. Let's get some feedback and some longer delays happening. So that's nice clean delays. As I change the switch, they'll degrade more and they'll start to sound darker, because the tape would get darker and distorted and delayed, or degraded, I don't know. And it creates this cool sort of thing happening behind you. You can hit it hard. I can do that. Let me pull the mix back. Yeah. But notice how it's just there. That's what I think the beauty of putting it after the modeler really is. It's not getting out of control as I feed into it. If you were putting this in the opposite way, like you would in an amplifier, it might get out of hand as you start to play around with the amp a little bit. Now it'll do that too as I turn the gain up. And I shouldn't have to mess with it all that much. I can still hear my initial guitar tone pretty well. I don't think I left anything out. It's pretty straightforward if you know about tape echoes or you're interested in it. It's a really nice sounding one. Small footprint, same algorithm as the Starlight pedal, has the EP3 preamp, which we turned on, has all the fun stuff. Oh, I forgot about the wonk control. That is the wow and flutter attached to the trails. That means they'll do some slight pitch bending and that sort of thing. If I turn up longer, turn that up. Let's see if we can get wacky. So it sounds pretty garbly and washy. Yeah, so if you're into that kind of thing, the Orion does it quite well, and more so if you're using an amp pedal like the Dream or the Ruby or anything else out there, try putting your time-based effects after it. I think we have a winning combination right there. So let's talk about reverb, because nobody likes a dry guitar on the internet, me included. If we add a little bit of spring reverb from the Dream, we'll get that classic drip sound. You can almost imagine the springs moving inside of that metal pan, right? But if you don't want that and you want something a little bit more studio-esque, you're maybe hunting for a plate reverb, you can turn on and add the Heavenly pedal, which we have here. This is the EMT 140 style reverb, most associated with the giant plate reverbs of old, big metal plates that would, give you these different kind of reverberations. And honestly, it's probably my favorite reverb because it's like sonic saran wrap around your tone. Play like that a lot because it's just fun. It sounds great. Now, we may be giving it kind of a generous, amount, but that's okay because we're trying to hear this verb and we want to talk about, is it obtrusive? No, it's actually playing nicely with the Dream pedal here. I could probably back the mix down a little bit. I like to make the decay or the space of the room or the plate big and long, but not a lot of level. Now it has other functions like pre-delay, which means there's an amount of time before the reverb starts to kick in. You can EQ the reverb with the EQ control. You can actually select 3 different types of plates. Now, in the original unit, there was A, which was bright. Let's see if we can tell a difference. Give it a little more mix. B, which was darker. You can definitely hear it's like boomier. And then C is kind of a combination. I can actually feel the low end change and will still be there on C. It's really, really wild. But I kind of like A. Now you don't have to use that much of it. You could shorten it up and change that. So plate really just kind of hangs in there with your tone, doesn't really jump out as much like a spring, in my opinion, unless you really gas it up. Now you can do fun things like add some modulation to the trails. So now you're getting, I'll stop with the whammy bar, sorry guys. So now you're getting chorusing on the actual trails. We'll lengthen the decay of the plate. So lots of fun sounds can be had, and it's playing really nicely with where it sits in the chain. You can do a couple things with all these pedals. Of course, you can do the bypass where it's true bypass or buffered bypass, and in this particular pedal, you can change the rate of the modulation. Right now, it's in the slower portion, but we could change that and make that chorusing go even faster. So pretty straightforward. I'm a big fan of plate reverbs. I use them all the time in the studio and when I'm dialing up specific sounds in my other pedals that I have on different pedal boards, because it's just a different flavor than a spring and it's not quite as mechanical sounding. So Heavenly will give you that. Again, I'm going to lobby to be on this pedal naming board because it seems like fun. Let's check out this other reverb pedal too called Evermore. See what I mean about the names? So one thing Universal Audio does really well is bring in the sounds of classic studio gear now in pedal form, and they've done that with Evermore. This is the sound of the old Lexicon 224 digital reverb that was so popular in the 80s, and they've done a great job of putting it in this small pedal platform. Again, we're behind or after the delay in the other reverb, with the Dream pedal being our amplifier. And they kind of keep true to a lot of the parameters you'd expect on that old box. We have the mix control, which of course does our level of how much reverb you're going to hear. And the decay times, it's unique to this product to where the bass, middle, and treble, it's not an EQ, it's the reverb attached to those frequencies, and we can kind of make them really long or short depending on, maybe we want the bass frequency kind of low, and we only get those high reverbs happening. We'll bring those back in. You can hear those low frequencies hanging in there a little bit longer. And it's fun to kind of play around if you're looking for this kind of sound and you really crank them. Yeah. So the thing to take away is that it's just kind of adding to that overall sound of the Dream. It's not really taking anything away. It's really enveloping the tone. Now we can add some modulation to that. It's kind of a cool, another cool feature. It does it in a much different way than the Heavenly or the Plate. You hear how it's kind of playing behind me? That is the beauty of this as well. Now there is a pre-delay function that I believe I have on. I'll have to check. No, it was on. And you can hear how quickly it happens when I turn it off. What's nice is if the pre-delay is on, it waits a bit before the effect comes and engages itself, you know. And then it comes in. So those are sounds that people are after, believe it or not. Now, if you're watching this channel and you hear me play a lot of blues rock, you're like, well, how can I use that? Well, you could, you know, dial that all back and maybe get something that's like maybe more of a small room sound, because that's a available functionality on here. I just dialed that up right off the top of my head. Pretty nice. Dial up a little more gain. Nice little room sound. Yeah, so more than meets the eye with any particular reverb or delay pedal. There's always a lot going on, but it's all working well with an amp modeler pedal afterwards. It's not really going in front of it, which is nice because then it's not changing the overall tone of my amp. That's important. So keep these time-based effects after your amp pedal if you own something like this. I think that's the verdict. There's no rules, but that's what we're doing today to get some great sounds. So let's throw them all on, see what happens. We'll start with our normal sort of clean, dry tone. Very inspiring. Let's throw on the Orion delay. Not bad, but we want some of that plate reverb. Yeah, it's getting us a nice fresh tone there. Something we can lean into a little bit. Now, what if I want to gain it up a little bit and add some more personality from the amp? I'm just going to turn the volume control up. It's going to drive the amp like a normal Fender Deluxe would. Sounding nice, yeah. Maybe I want a little bit more, and then we're going to smack it with some compression. You can see the compressor lights engaging. It's squeezing those notes. Yeah, I mean, who said a Fender amp tone couldn't get you there? We have the 4-to-1 compression on as opposed to just the circuit being engaged, so it is doing some squeezing. Now, what if I want to get big and have that big digital reverb from the 80s? Let's throw the Evermore on. We can modulate them a little bit. Compressor off. Really does a lot. And you can hear that reverb hanging in there. I'm convinced, sounds pretty darn good. Now, you don't have to get those kind of tones. Let's see if we can quickly get something a little bit more rootsier. We'll make the delay time shorter, the repeats down. We'll do something like that. We'll put on, make the plate shorter, a little darker. We'll gain it up some, maybe add the compressor. We don't want to boost it too much. Yeah, so it's not just about making big washy verbs. We can do a lot of stuff if we understand how to adjust reverbs. We've done that on the channel a bit too, so there's other videos. If you got questions, let me know. So what do you guys think about the amp pedal and the effects before or after it? Have you tried it? Do you want to try it? Are you not interested? Do you think it sounds great? Let me know in the comments. I love hearing from everybody and what they have to share with their own experiences and so on and so forth. So enough about that. I want to go play these pedals, but first, we should always check the links if you want more details on the pedals, as well as the 14-day free trial to my guitar lessons. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you found this helpful. I would sure appreciate it, and I'll see you next time after I got these tones dialed up, and who knows where we'll go on the next one with another fun piece of gear or a great lesson. All right, I'll see you guys next time.